the truth is the number one stopper. They say you think, but you never want to speak up. They say you're hiding there, you're busy, but what's on your mind, kid? What's on your mind, kid? They say out loud there will never be.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for episode number 54 of the Board Game Barrage podcast. My name is Mark. With me as always are my two co-hosts, Kellen and Neelan.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
On today's episode, after we get through talking about the games we've been playing this week, we are going to go over our most anticipated games of 2019. These are going to be the 15 games that you should keep an eye on because we have deemed them the games to keep track of.
Were you tired of lists? Because we gave you 5 weeks of lists.
People love lists.
So we're giving you lists.
Next week's episode is going to be the top 5 lists that we've done over the year.
Yeah.
So.
A retrospective?
That's right.
Oh, that would be so funny if it was us commenting on how bad some of the old stuff was.
Of our own stuff?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't think people would like it.
No, I
That's
don't
a
think
good topic for 55 as well. 5, 55.
When are
top
we at
5.
a year?
so.
Are we at a year?
Officially, this week.
Yeah?
I
Is
think
that
so.
right?
2 weeks past 52, you guys said, right?
That's right.
Well,
That's right. That's
who
correct.
can say?
Yeah. What is a year? But no, that should be should be it.
Yeah, don't start with last week's topic, Neelan. Stop it.
So I guess our 1-year anniversary is going to fall on next week's episode. So unfortunately, that's a Kellen episode. So sorry, you guys.
I've been planning this spectacular for 1 year.
Okay.
That's
I can't
exactly
wait.
right.
No pressure then. No pressure.
You guys were so excited. Oh, I get to be episode 50. No. The anniversary episode belongs to
Big Daddy.
the creator, Big Daddy, Callan.
All right. So you guys have that to look forward to. So in the meantime, let's get this one underway. So let's talk about the games we've been playing. Kellen, Big Daddy, what have you been playing?
Please, no. No. It's like as a 12-year-old, people would call me like Big Boy.
That is definitely staying in the episode.
And
Good guy.
I did not like it. I was not a big boy.
I want the tag just to be that line. As a 12-year-old, I will call you big boy.
Ask and you shall receive.
That's it.
You can
Done.
hear in my voice that I did not like being called this.
Yeah, right. I can see it. I can see the tear rolling down your eyes as you say that.
One of the games that Mark and I got to play this past week is New Frontiers, a Race for the Galaxy board game. This is designed by
Tom Lehman.
Thank you, because I couldn't remember his name. This game has a long and storied history. Puerto Rico, the board game, is a very famous action selection board game with a problematic theme. A card game version was asked to be designed by Tom Lehman, and his initial draft was turned in, and it was deemed too complicated. And so he decided to make his own game. That game was rethemed to space. And that became Race for the Galaxy, which is a very, very popular card game. Race for the Galaxy has since been turned into Roll for the Galaxy and has now been turned into New Frontiers, a Race for the Galaxy board game.
Right.
That's literally the subtitle of it. That's horrible. It's on the side.
Right.
New Frontiers, a Race for the Galaxy board game, where it is sort of a mixture of Puerto Rico along with Race for the Galaxy. So in New Frontiers, you are building a engine. You are acquiring planets and acquiring special powers to essentially get goods and sell them and trade them and earn victory points. And what makes the game so interesting is that when someone selects an action, everyone at the table gets to also do that action on that round. You just get a bonus. And so it's always about figuring out how to best profit off of that bonus action, or deciding, like, I know that Mark is going to trade on this turn.
Right.
And so I can afford to not trade on this turn. So I will select a different thing that will get me a better bonus, knowing I'm still going to be well served in the trading. So what this does compared to Race for the Galaxy is it feels a little bit less. Card draw is less important. So it separates. In Race for the Galaxy, a card serves as both a planet that produces a type of resource, and it also has a power associated with that card. And in what New Frontiers, a Race for the Galaxy board game, does is it puts those powers out at the start of the game and sometimes varies what those powers are, but those are always available to you.
Yeah.
So it gets rid of some of the luck that some people feel in Race for the Galaxy. What did you think of this game, Mark?
I really liked it. I know some people are really big fans of both Race and Roll for the Galaxy. I've never played Race, and I'm sort of lukewarm on Roll. I like this more than Roll for the Galaxy, and I would play this again, and I thought it was a good game. Didn't knock my socks off. I wonder if you have to be really big fan of Race or Roll to really, really love this. But it's a well-designed game. I really had a good time playing it. I just don't know if I would eagerly play it again.
That's interesting. My experience, and I lost to you by just a few points.
Right.
Because you got very lucky with some random RNG.
Edit that part out.
RNG. One of the things I was afraid of is once you started laying out all these special powers that you could buy, it felt like I was getting into a Komet situation for me, which was there's too much front-loaded rules information, too much that I have to decide what to do at the very beginning of the game.
You have to sort of plot out your strategy a little. Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm just going to prefer Race for the Galaxy because the powers that you're able to use are more limited.
Yeah.
But it wasn't overwhelming. I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't overwhelming. We used an optional module which added goal cards to the game, which I don't believe is necessary. I think the game is tight and fine and good without it. One of the things that's different, Race for the Galaxy versus New Frontiers, is that in Race for the Galaxy, everyone chooses their action simultaneously, and you don't know what they've chosen, and they're all revealed at the same time. And then those actions happen in order. So you're desperately hoping that someone is producing before you want to trade. And that is not here in New Frontiers. It's more like Puerto Rico, where the rounds just keep going round and around. And so you don't feel sometimes as screwed up. It doesn't feel like you're as screwed, for lack of a better word, when someone doesn't do the exact thing you want.
You're planning on it, yeah.
And so I liked that about it. I was pleasantly surprised by New Frontiers. I think the art is cool. It has really cool resources. They look like portal cubes from Valve's game. Companion cubes for the nerds out there. It made me pull out Race for the Galaxy. I didn't play it. I pulled it out and just looked at it longingly. But I was excited about this. I was jazzed. I was a little upset that I didn't own it. I feel like it's getting a fine to middling good reception, and I think that that's fair, given that the system has existed in so many different forms that, you know, if you don't have Race, if you don't have Roll, maybe New Frontiers would be the game for you. This is a good, tight system, cool artwork. It's tried and true at this point, even though it's now back in this new form, in this new flavor.
I've had my eye on this for a little bit, and I feel like someone that really, really likes Puerto Rico and is maybe felt a little bit let down by Race. And again, I know that's a weird first impression. I've spoken about that before. I like Roll, but still Puerto Rico is the one of those three games that I like the most. Does New Frontiers, is that going to scratch the Puerto Rico itch?
I think this would be the game
that
for you.
Feels like the ideal circumstance for you to pick this up.
Especially if like one of your gripes with Roll and Race is the simultaneous action selection.
I actually do like that too, to be honest. I think that's one of the strongest things about Race and Roll. But yeah, no, I don't think that would be enough for me to miss it.
What is it? Can you elaborate on what is it about Puerto Rico that you like more than Race and Roll?
Honestly, it's been a while since I played Puerto Rico. I remember I did like the roll selection mechanic quite a lot. I would say I probably do like that more than the simultaneous selection in Race. I find them both interesting for different reasons. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it strikes me as the game that is most like Puerto Rico for the reason Kellen mentioned.
With a lot more powers and different things going on and a much better theme.
Okay.
That is New Frontiers, a Race for the Galaxy board game. I'm excited to play this more, so I might have to pick it up. It was good. I would definitely,
I would definitely play it again.
I can see someone who's played very many games of this type might not feel like there's enough new there.
Interesting. Okay.
It's like Glory to Rome, right, is frequently in this consideration set because it also has an action selection system where you're building up stuff with crazy engine building powers, but it's insane. This just feels more tame. It's civilized.
Yeah, right.
Race for the Galaxy, no. New Frontiers, a Race for the Galaxy board game. Check it out.
Nice. Another game that Kellen and I played was a Blast from the Past, and sort of also harkens back to the games we talked about last week. We were talking about Gugong in that episode, so Kellen and I played a game of Andreas Stedding's first game, and it's the one he's most well known for, Hansa Teutonica. This was the first time I played it. I really, really enjoyed my playlist. What you're trying to do in this game is there's a lot going on. You've got an area majority. You've got your own tableau where you are unlocking powers and sort of building an engine. One thing I really liked about this game is there are different parts of your engine that you can build. You can build the engine and get more actions per turn. You can build the engine in such a way where when you're replenishing your workers, you can make it so that you're replenishing more workers. This is sort of akin to El Grande, where you have two supplies of workers, the ones that are active to you and then the ones that are in your reserve that are harder to unlock. So there's an action in Hansa Teutonica where you can move them from the reserve supply to your active supply. One of the ways you can build your engine is have it so that you're unlocking more workers each time. It's also a route building game. You're trying to build a route around this map, and there are certain buildings that you cannot put one of your cubes in unless you have unlocked that color. So at the beginning of the game, anybody can place cubes only in white buildings. Then you can unlock it so that you can place in orange buildings and then red buildings and black buildings. And so if you unlocked all of them, you can place your tokens anywhere on the board. One thing that I really like about this game is when you see these things you can unlock, you naturally think, well, I need to unlock the more actions per turn. Just as a gamer, you always feel like the efficient thing to do is early on, I'm going to unlock as many actions as I can per turn and then just run with that.
Family growth.
Right, exactly. That's exactly right. But Hansa Teutonica seems to be, at least on first blush, balanced in such a way that you really don't really need to do that. You don't really need to have maximum actions in order to win the game. It seems like the different powers are sort of balanced in such a way that if you play them right...
So this is a old school Euro game.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's defined in a couple of ways, and one of which is the player with the most experience crushed us at this game.
Yes.
Did a thing that we didn't even realize was possible and suddenly had half the victory points, which is awesome, which I love. And the other thing is that it's extremely cutthroat. You know, you're building a route and it's not Care Bear, first one there gets it forever. It's if you're willing to, you can pay for it and take someone off of that space.
Right.
You just have to be willing to pay for it. And so naturally, you know, Mark is talking a big talk here about not needing to unlock actions first, but he immediately went for big actions.
Which is true, yeah. I just saw that board. I saw unlock more actions per turn. I said, well, that's what you have to do.
And it became gridlock. Player 1 and player 2 both surrounded, go to the castle where you unlock extra actions, and then player 3 and player 4, who was me, were sort of taking cheap shots at you to try to prevent you from doing that. And it became gridlock. Finally was, well, we have to expend our resources somewhere else. But what this game allows you to do is you can become in charge of a castle, have control of a castle. And when anyone completes a route that's adjacent to that castle, you score a victory point. So when you complete that route next to the Unlock Extra Actions castle, you actually have a choice. And that choice is control the castle so that you score victory points every time someone comes there ever again, or unlock extra actions.
Which is great. A great choice.
And so I let you idiots stay down there, and I went to what I perceived as the second best place, which I don't think is the second best place, to allow you to unlock...
the ability to go into more castles.
The ability to go into better castles, more castles. And I said, from now on, anytime anyone unlocks this, I'm going to be getting my victory points. And so I knew that you guys were quickly going to make your way to my castle.
Right, yeah. Which
and this castle was harder to... You can change the control a little bit in some of the castles, but this castle specifically, you couldn't take it from me.
Right.
One of the other things that I loved about Hansa Teutonica is how tactical of an experience it was. You kind of have an idea of what you want to do, but one of the actions, which we dubbed the helicopter action, which makes no sense in this ye old Arthur theme, was you've built a route somewhere completely differently, and it's actually more efficient just to move your guys than it is to bring out new guys. And so you're at one part of the map, and then you get out the Apache helicopter and you fly them across the map. Suddenly you're unlocking something else. That was awesome.
It was awesome because you could you could start considering your next move and think, okay, well, Kellen's got me blocked off here, so I can't do that. And so that could change in one of two ways. You can say, okay, I'm just going to abandon that. I'm just going to move all those resources with one action across the board, and that's another power you can unlock. You can unlock the ability to helicopter more cubes, and that becomes like a very powerful move because somebody thinks you're sitting on one area of the board, and then all of a sudden you can just take over another section with one move. And yeah, just the tactical nature of it is very, very strong in this game.
It has that almost hard to describe feeling of my board has a bunch of different things I can unlock, and I want to do all of them,
Yeah.
and I'm never going to get to do all of them. I want to be better at getting all my cubes back. I want to be able to be better at driving the helicopter. I want to be able to go to any castle in the kingdom, and I want more actions. Or, one of them is just helps you score victory points for having the longest road.
Right. So good. Because it feels like both I think you can win this game both generalizing and increasing each of them a little bit. But I can also see you, if you just were, wanting to maximize something, you could win that way. It just seems like a game where different strategies, according to the board state and the players you're playing against, could be successful. I don't feel like a one truth path exists there.
I imagine we'd get crushed by good players.
Yeah,
in Hansa
right,
Teutonica,
right. Which is something
which is awesome, but it's also very spiteful, which I loved. It was, you've done 2 of 3 routes to this castle, and then Mark puts his big piece there, and I just say, well, you can waste your turn. I'm helicoptering somewhere else, dude. I never meant to be here.
Right.
And you get into these stalemates where you're just glaring at each other, but that's what you're doing the whole time. And that's what I love about a old school Euro like this. In a modern Euro game that has one small take that element where you just get screwed, you're so upset about it happening. Hansa Teutonica, this is happening twice per turn.
Yes, right.
The very nature of the game means you must do that thing.
Right.
Suddenly it doesn't feel bad. Suddenly it's funny. You're still tense and hoping that no one goes there and annoyed when it does happen, but it's such a better flow for me.
Absolutely.
This was super great. Really, really liked Hansa Teutonica.
Same here, absolutely.
I have to play this. I feel like I've heard people raving about this for so long at this point that I'm excited. To try this
it's a great game. It's for sure.
Does it have any similarities to Gugong? Because that was the natural comparison where Gugong was being kickstarted at least.
No,
this is the Hansa
I would just say
design.
Same
flat out.
designer.
Straight up no. Okay,
Same
designer,
designer,
and that's it.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't see anything.
Don't look
No.
at the cover if you're going to buy it. Just add it to your cart.
Yeah.
Check out. Kind of put a bag over its head, maybe. Hansa Teutonica.
Yes.
Cool.
A Race for the Galaxy board game.
Before we move on to our anticipated games of 2019, just a reminder that we've got a Discord channel that is live right now. You're probably missing out on some great conversation at this very moment if you haven't joined in. So go to boardgamebarrage.com/Discord and join in the fun. It's been a really fun, to use that word too many times.
Discord is Discord, in case you don't know. One of the best things about being on the Discord is that you can use a red tank emoji. So if someone does something that's awesome or funny or cool...
Well, you wouldn't use the red tank for that. Red tank is sort of analogous to the sad face emoji. So
that's not what the description on Discord says.
Wait, you had the descriptions?
No, but I did add a
should.
red tank class.
Okay.
I'm trying to get it so when I talk, it's in red. Anyway.
And in addition to that, reviews. Send in your reviews on Apple Podcasts or on Facebook or anywhere where you can review us. Yelp, if you can somehow swing that. Just any place you can review us. And we'll be happy to read that on upcoming shows. That aside, let's get into our most anticipated games of 2019. The year is upon us. People are asking, what games should we look out for? Look no further, because we're about to tell you. Once and for all.
This is them.
Yeah, there will be no better games than the 15 games that we mentioned from this point forward. Agreed?
Agreed.
Okay.
Spit on your hand and shake.
Right. Well, we do that.
Cut your arm and bleed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cut your arm and bleed. That's the saying
Well,
goes.
no.
The
Then
saying
you rub
goes.
the
No,
blood
yeah,
together.
No, yeah.
With
Cut
the
your arm
spit.
and bleed.
Have you never seen a good television show, Mark?
I have never seen a show where people cut their arms and bled into each other's arms, if that's what you're implying.
Well, it seems like you're watching objectively bad television shows.
Okay, so let's start it up with Neelan. What is your
sure.
number?
My number 5 most anticipated game for 2019 is Eclipse, Second Dawn for the Galaxy.
Is there a colon?
Yeah, I think there is.
Oh, no.
And I'm surprised this is not a Race for the Galaxy game. But yeah, this is the essentially second edition of Eclipse. This was kickstarted at some point last year by Colossal. The designer is Toko Takokalio. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. Eclipse is, to my mind, it's my favorite 4X game. I think there are a lot of board games that aspire to be 4X games, and few quite get all of the X's. Eclipse is one of the few that does. It is a space game where you start in one corner of the map, spread out, you're exploring. space, you're researching technologies, you're exploiting resources on the planets you're sort of colonizing, using that to build bigger and better ships, and then sort of go out, send your big combat vessels out and attack the players next to you. It's a game that leans quite heavily into sort of utilizing resources effectively and these big dicey battles. It's a pretty cool sort of a hybrid game that sort of has very Euro trappings. I kind of liken it to, if you like games like Twilight Imperium but are looking for the game that has, sort of, in my mind, a purer, more Euro rule set, this is what you're looking for. There are things I really, really like about Eclipse. Highest on my list are, there's this mechanic where you can design your ships. So on your board, you have your 4 classes of ships, and there are little spots that represent like the plans for the ship. And then you choose which technologies you install in each of those plans, and then anytime you build that ship, it has those weapons. So your class, your scout class of ship, say, might be very different from someone else's scout class of ship. It's just a cool idea, and the combat is this very elaborate, while very dice chucky, it just feels satisfying because it's about the timing of your weapons and what goes off and before other people's. It's a really cool game. I'm excited to play this. It's quite a long game, so I don't know when we will ever get the chance to actually play this.
When does this come?
I don't actually know. I think it's in the next few months. I don't think it's anytime soon. I think it's maybe around second quarter of the year, thereabouts.
I'm very excited to try this.
Yeah, so am I.
Because they fixed the overpowered missiles.
Yeah.
I've never played.
Well, but that's
I'm
one
making stuff up.
Totally, but that's one of the things that people, one of the big appeals is that they're balancing some of the problems I think that people had with the first edition of the game. So
didn't it add cool art and minis?
Yeah, it's
minis?
Well, I think there were like expansions that sort of gave you custom ships for each of them. They're now rolled into just the Kickstarter. I guess this depends on pledge levels and that sort of thing. But yeah, this has the custom minis. This has these beautiful game trays, very redesigned player mats.
You made of money, Neelan?
Was that? Yeah,
What?
I just threw all of it at Eclipse. This is the only game I'm going to play this year. Weirdly, number 5 on my list. But that is Eclipse: Second Dawn for the Galaxy.
Where's the colon?
It is after Eclipse.
But before
Second Dawn for the Galaxy.
And then before a Race for the Galaxy.
Yeah, there's a second colon after Galaxy, a Race for the Galaxy game. Yeah.
Kellen.
My number 5 most anticipated board game of 2019 was supposed to be in my hands almost 2 years ago. Thank you, Peterson Games. This is Glorantha, The Gods' War, Cthulhu Wars, but different.
A Race for the Galaxy board game.
Yeah, that one might be a stretch for this. Glorantha? I don't know. It's another theme that I have no interest in, similar to Cthulhu Wars, except this one is a little more normal mythological fantasy, but it is still a specific book or series of something that I've never heard of.
Okay.
Glorantha, The Gods' War is a more tactical, a little bit longer, and has way more negotiation and plotting than Cthulhu Wars' version of Cthulhu Wars. Now, what I fear about Glorantha, The Gods' War is that I will either prefer Cthulhu Wars or The Gods' War, and that there won't be a place for both of them in my collection. And this is going to be a very expensive realization that I have in 2019. So I have Glorantha, The Gods' War coming, along with, there are I think 4 in the regular game and then 4 expansion races. So I've got 8 races in a Cthulhu Wars-like dudes on a map mini game. It's going to be insane. We've got everything.
And this is longer than Cthulhu Wars.
It's a little longer than Cthulhu Wars. It's supposed to have a little bit more negotiation. There's a phase where you can just sort of all vote on who loses victory points or some ridiculous, silly thing. I remember showing the rule book to Neelan at one point and just laughing about what you can do in certain phases of this game. I am so excited to try Glorantha, The Gods of War, I don't know. Peterson Games. I kickstarted this, I think, 3 or 4 years ago.
I was going to say, is this definitely coming?
Well, who can say? So I can hope that it's coming. This is Glorantha, The Gods' War. If this is successful, because Peterson Games has already said they have less than 15 extra copies that are not part of the Kickstarter fulfillment, this almost bankrupted Peterson Games because of how big these minis are, which is so silly. The plan would be, if it's successful, if people like it, they have an expansion already planned for the Gods' War that adds more units to each race, and that would come out later this year in 2019. So if we're excited about Glorantha, I'm going to be beating that drum pretty hard so that I can get that Kickstarter and be disappointed for waiting 4 more years. That is Glorantha, The Gods' War. Actually, it does strike me that why am I telling people about a game that they probably can't get? It's kind of mean.
That's fine. That's sort of your thing.
If you want... What? Being mean?
Yeah.
Says who?
It says
I
our
thought I was
Discord channel. And
the
the secret
man of
channel
the
I've
people.
got.
What? You don't.
I've got a red tank complaint department. People are just piling in there.
I hope you throw all those complaints away, dude.
But yeah, but that's a funny point because I think the next game on my list is especially going to be impossible for people to get, which I'm now realizing. But anyway.
All right. Well, it's just skipping over mine.
Oh, sorry.
My number 5 game of 2019 that I'm most eagerly anticipating is Tokyo TSUKIJI Market. Tsujiki Market.
That's
Tokyo
right.
Tsujiki Market. This is by Jordan Draper. It promises, or it seems to be, a combination of a game that we played for the first time this year, Container, meets another game I guess we played for the first time this year,
with
Fleet.
our friend Nate.
Yeah, Nate introduced us to Fleet, and it seems like it has a lot of similarities to that game. With a little bit of, from what I understand, it has like a little bit of a ethnos thing too, because I think you select like the 5 fish that you're going to be going out and fishing, and different fish score or have different powers. So yeah, that all sort of combines into a very into an interesting game, in my opinion. So just to go back over it, a lot like Container, what you're doing is you have a fishing fleet and you're going out to sea and you're obtaining licenses to fish, which is a lot like Fleet, to fish these different types of fish, and you're bringing them back into your harbor and selling them. Feels a lot like Container, looks a lot like Container, and this is sort of the one part that I'm a little concerned about, because Jordan Draper, the designer of this game, also designed Import-Export, which a lot of people said was very iterative of Container. Like it just was sort of the same game with a little bit of Glory to Rome.
That's right. It was a mixture of the two of those.
Yeah,
games.
and sort of like blatantly so, right? Was that what you said?
That's right.
Yeah.
Very blatantly so.
So, my concern with Tokyo TSUKIJI Tsujiki Market is that...
Well, no, I'm wrong, actually. I'm looking at it now. TSUKIJI.
Oh.
Very interesting. Sorry.
Anyway, yeah, no problem. So my concern for this game, like the things that are coming out for Import-Export, is it just may be a little too iterative of Container and Fleet, but it looks pretty. I mean, the board is nice, the components look nice, and I like the economic aspect. If it plays like Container, I think I'll probably enjoy it. So that's my...
So this is currently running on Kickstarter right now.
Oh, okay.
As you are reading this.
Okay.
He makes a series of games called the Tokyo series of tabletop games. We've looked at a couple of them before. They're very adorable, very small and tight. Tokyo Metro is the other one that we have not played but are excited to try at some point, his more heavier games. The thing about Tokyo TSUKIJI Market that I'm excited about is I've been to this market. It's sort of the premier fish market in Tokyo where all the fish come in and people go and just watch this tuna auction happen. So it's deeply thematic. It's very interesting. I believe Jordan Draper has spent a lot of time in Tokyo, so it's fun from that perspective. It's just interesting. It looks cool, but I have similar misgivings to some of the origins of these systems.
Yeah. So that's number 5. Tokyo TSUKIJI Market. Great, thanks.
My number 4 game is Sabotage by Tim Fowers. So this was a game I referenced, which I actually, now that I think about it, I believe was only going to be available on Kickstarter and is not actually having a retail release. So I'm sorry about that. But if you find a way to get a hold of Sabotage, it seems really cool. This is a 2 versus 2 asymmetric team game that is modeled after Splinter Cell's multiplayer. So the Splinter Cell is a video game, and it had this very unique multiplayer, which was a 2v2 game where one team played the spies and one team played the mercs, and each side played completely differently. The merc team, in sort of video game terms, played like a first-person shooter, basically, and the spy team had this like tactical stealth game to it. And I think he's replicating that sort of idea where one team is sort of slinking around the map, trying to sort of complete objectives, and the other team is sort of just brute force running around, trying to find them and sort of didn't kill them, basically. But the thing that game emphasized, Splinter Cell, and what he seems to be leaning into with Sabotage, is this intense cooperation between the two of you. So if you're not working very tightly with your partner, you're not going to be doing well at this. So it's a game that's sort of going to emphasize team play and sort of just repeat play, like sort of learning how to play well effectively, learning sort of how to focus with your teammate on completing objectives. And that's something that seems really, really appealing to me, like a sort of a small team game that you're going to learn to get good at and learn sort of the meta game to it. It also seems like it has a lot of variability in terms of different powers that will be available. It has a hidden movement component that I'm a little bit wary about because I haven't traditionally loved hidden movement games, but everything else about the way that this is being described sounds way up my alley.
Interesting, because in your description of it, it seemed to me what I thought was like a hidden movement game, but like a two-player hidden movement. Usually with hidden movement, it's like a one versus all sort of
totally.
thing. The way you were describing it, it just felt like, okay, this is hidden movement, but 2 versus 2.
Totally. I think what characterizes the Splinter Cell multiplayer for me is sort of like an intense sort of like reduction of scope. Like they're generally very small maps, very small, limited objectives, a small environment to navigate. So when I think about sort of hidden movement games, what characterizes them to me is a sort of a big map where you're sort of fumbling against the map for the longest time trying to find them. Right. What was good about Spy vs. Mercs, and what I hope he replicates in this, is that you're constantly just brushing against people constantly. Mm-hmm. Like you're just on the verge of being detected at any point in time in that game. And then you get detected and you have to run away and sort of regroup. If this recaptures that, I'm all for it. That is Sabotage by Tim Fowers.
My number 4 game I am most excited about in 2019 is from the same designer as Archipelago. Christoph Bollinger. Who knows? Who can say? Someone
Probably Christoph.
Or his parents. This is Living Planet. This has such a cool theme. Galactic corporations on desolate planets. The hexagon art is the same artist as Archipelago, which has some of our favorite board game art ever. What Living Planet does that I'm a little afraid of, but I think will appeal to many gamers, is it takes Archipelago, it strips away the semi-co-op nature, which is the most contentious part, it strips away the hidden goals, and keeps most of the other systems. So it is a game about effectively exploring a planet. And then there is also that stock market system that's in Archipelago, where it's a very dynamic market. You can't impact the other players in the same way that you can in Archipelago, but you're essentially mining the planet, exploring, trying not to get hurt by the planet, while simultaneously trying to maximize this stock market where resources, their values change based on how many of other people are mining or bringing to the market. If you have not seen this art and you're interested in science fiction at all, Living Planet looks gorgeous. This is another Kickstarter game that I have coming this year. Just based on the designer alone, I would absolutely play it. I'm so into Archipelago that I have to try this. The theme is right up my alley. That is Living Planet by Christoph Bollinger? And it looks so cool.
Speaking of Archipelago, just a quick mention that I just saw that Archipelago is going to be reprinted this year. So
what?
Yeah, reprint is coming this year. So
how do you know this, but not me?
People, me and Christoph are
Is
tight.
it changing at all?
And it's actually Bollinger.
Is it?
I spoke to Christoph this morning.
Do you actually think?
I have no idea.
Just stop it.
Come on, yeah, but it is being reprinted this year. So if anybody who caught our top 50 list, which you should catch both on the podcast or on YouTube, we all had Archipelago on our list of top 50 games of all time, and if you want a copy of it, this is the year.
Triple crossover.
Boom, boom, boom. Okay. My number 4 game of 2019, most anticipated, is a game that I am interested in based on its lineage, and not actually from the designer, because as far as I can tell, this is Ryan Courtney's first game, but from the publisher, Capstone Games. They made one of my favorite games last year, which is a remake of Nunu Hemet. But The Estates last year was one of my favorite games. They also are the company behind Lignum, which I really like, Haspel Connect, and Three Kingdoms Redux. Three Kingdoms Redux, which I actually just got a copy of, so we need to play that.
What is the game, Mark?
The game is...
I know what it is. Something about the Chinese zodiac.
Pipeline.
No. Damn it.
Pipeline.
Dang it.
So this is a heavy economic game about getting oil, refining oil, and selling it to the market. This is probably my biggest point of concern. I feel like I will really like this game, but the theme is quite dry. But, a lot of Capstone Games themes are dry. Lignum is about cutting down wood and drying it and stuff like that, and Haspel Connect is about getting coal out of coal mines. So the themes can be dry, but the mechanics are always rock solid, and nothing makes me believe that this will be any different. Things I like about it is, aside from the heavy economic aspect of it, which seems really, really nice and meaty, it's got a lot of variability. So you are taking these tiles that have different like pipes on from a main board, and you're putting them into your pipeline, and I guess there's like something like 300 tiles that you can use in the game, so every game is theoretically different in that respect. The art is gorgeous. It's one of these up and coming artists, Ian O'Toole, so the game looks beautiful.
Yeah, up and coming.
Yeah.
Wait, I thought you were making a joke.
Oh no, I feel like Ian O'Toole is like the hot new artist,
but he's like what I would say is like the top 5 artist in. Is Eminem
Isn't
up
like
and
every Lacerda game is Ian O'Toole?
Yeah, okay. I saw him like on a bunch of stuff this year, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's more established than I thought. But it's beautiful. It's a beautiful game.
No, it
sure.
absolutely is.
It's like the New England Patriots up and coming.
This is basically, for all intents and purposes, number 6 on my list.
Okay.
It's certainly the heaviest game that I'm excited for this year. It's like you said, the art is beautiful. Like I remember seeing this at Gen Con, and it's just so striking. Yeah, the sort of the pipe dream style, like, connection of your pipes is a very interesting component.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see how big a part of the actual game that is.
Yeah, it's interesting because like a heavy economic game usually doesn't have that spatial tiling aspect to it. So that seems very interesting. So, but I feel like with Capstone, you don't really ever go wrong. So my number 4 is Pipeline from Capstone Games.
This just barely didn't make my top 10. I know that I will enjoy playing this once or twice, but probably it will be too heavy for me. Right. But man, it looks cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of young up-and-comer Ian and O'Toole, my number 3 game is Escape Plan, which is also art by Ian O'Toole and is actually designed by Vital Lacerda. Escape Plan is heavily inspired by sort of heist films. The premise of this is that you have just completed the heist and you're thieves sort of laying low in the city sort of after it, and then as the heat sort of starts to rise from like sort of cops on the search for you, you have to quickly make your break and head out of the city. You're sort of like calling in favors from like gangs and cops and sort of trying to get out of the city with more money than your cohorts. But you can't sort of directly conflict with other players, so it's about sort of slowing down their progress as they're sort of moving throughout the city. I don't know too much about it except that it's beautiful looking. I'm excited to receive this. I have backed this on Kickstarter. I like all of the Lacerda games I've played, and I'm excited to try this one. I think this is leaning towards lighter than the average Lacerda, from what I understand.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
But it looks super cool. I love the heist film genre, so that just is a super cool theme to me. And yeah, that's Escape Plan.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this one.
I wanted to put it on my list, but having only ever listened to a rules explanation for a Lacerda game, I felt like I couldn't really comment on it. I had to get out after that rules explanation.
What draws you to this? Is it the the escape, the heist thing?
It's the heist theme. Yeah. It's the art by up and comer Ian O'Toole, as well as a lighter Lacerda.
Yeah,
right.
Feels like my entry point.
Yeah, that was all of it for me as well. All 3 things that just made it shine out to me. That's Escape Plan.
The number 3 game I am most excited about in 2019 could actually have the A Race for the Galaxy board game attached to it, because it is Res Arcana, A Race for the Galaxy board game. No, it is a game by Tom Lehman. It is a fantasy-themed engine-building game. It is called Res Arcana. There is no colon. There is no A Race for the Galaxy board game on the end of this. But it is compared by some to Splendor in many ways, but a little bit more heavy. In other people's comments on this game so far have been the perfect mix of Race for the Galaxy and Magic the Gathering.
Wow.
That sounds great.
That sounds amazing.
That sounds like a high bar. Wow. Okay.
So Tom Lehman, as you heard, I was reinvigorated with my love for the Race for the Galaxy franchise. So this caught my eye. I prefer fantasy over science fiction when it's all said and done. Light engine building a la Splendor is something I'm into. I don't know much more about this game, but in preparation for this episode, this was the one that wasn't on the list, but the more I started looking at it, the more I'm like, yes, 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 and it started pushing out, some of all the Vital Lacerda games that were coming out this year. So that is Res Arcana, with no colon, with no Race for the Galaxy board game by Tom Lehman coming out this year. I'm very excited to check it out.
Tom Lehman, the designer of 1846.
Good up-and-coming designer.
Up-and-coming designer. Okay, my number 3 game had to be on our list, if not for the name alone. My number 3 game is Barrage. Barrage is a heavy Terra Mystica-ish sort of game, if the descriptions I've seen are accurate. It seems like you're building power lines or building some sort of like infrastructure, and like Terra Mystica, you can sort of be blocked off, and you can gain benefits from building near other people's power lines or structures. It's a very heavy game with a lot of heavy interaction, which I like. One of my favorite parts of Terra Mystica is the heavy interaction that you get from it. Yeah, this is on Kickstarter and should be coming out this year, and I'm really excited for a Terra Mystica-y sort of heavy conflict Euro.
I forgot to tell you that you can't actually have this on your list because no game has wreaked havoc on our SEO like Barrage.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Because when you search for board game Barrage,
everyone,
what do you want to see?
Right.
Us?
Well, here's the thing. We can back this game so hard that when you do a search for either Barrage, like any search for Barrage will just be tied in.
What is the YouTube title? Board game
Barrage.
Barrage?
Yeah.
Yep. It's Barrage squared.
Right, exactly. Yeah. For our playthrough. My number 3 game of 2019 is Barrage.
How meta of you.
The appropriately named Barrage.
My number 2 game is ELO Darkness, or ELO Darkness, depending how you want to pronounce that. The designers are Tomas Mondadori and Alberto Parisi. Like Gods of Atlantis, this is replicating the MOBA genre of video games. Unlike that game, which is sort of a more miniature game, team versus team affair, this is a 2-player card game that sort of leans closer to like a CCG. There is theoretically a deck building component to it. Unlike a CCG, you're not collecting cards over time. Everything's included in the box. And if you wanted to, you could construct a deck to play against someone else that was constructing a deck. Or you could draft a deck to play against someone. I think the way I'm probably going to end up playing this is constructing 2 decks or a handful of good decks and just saying, pick one of these, let's go. But that deck is comprised of 5 different heroes, and you're playing them to 3 different lanes, like you would in the MOBA or like you would in Gods of Atlantis. Your minion marker sort of moves along the lanes to each of the opponent's base, and if any one of those markers reaches their base, you win. What I like about this is it does seem to quite faithfully reproduce everything I like about the MOBA genre. I have played this before I backed this, I sort of played it on Tabletop Simulator, and I quite like it. It's got some elements that even Gods of Atlantis doesn't replicate. For example, one of the components is that you can sort of back away from a lane and then sort of immediately spring your hero onto another lane without your opponent expecting it. So it has this sort of surprise attack, sudden like reversal.
Ganking?
It has ganking in a way that Gods of Atlantis doesn't quite capture.
You don't strike me as someone who likes it.
Oh, I like it in MOBA games. I feel satisfying to be set up in a way and to be able to counter it. Like, there's nothing more satisfying to me than like someone attempting a gank on you and you being able to sort of counter out of it, right? And this actually,
it's the defense of a gank, not the. He's not a ganker.
He's not a ganker.
No, I would do. I would be on. Yeah, I would certainly be a well executed gank is something I could appreciate too. But
title of the episode: a well executed gank.
But yeah, this replicates it quite well. Like, you'll sort of have those smart card plays, which is you pulling out a lane, you playing a hero to another lane, then someone effectively countering that with their card play. It also has this sort of minor event system. So like the bosses appearing in a game like League of Legends, there are events that will give you rewards if you're willing to draw your attention away from the lanes, which I think is a smart idea. That is ELO Darkness. It is coming pretty soon, I believe, and I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Soon with a TM on it, right?
Yeah, potentially.
I do
As with
like
any Kickstarter.
I do like the idea of a 2-player Magic the Gathering MOBA experience.
Yeah. It's the sort of thing I've been trying to replicate ever since I sort of was into Magic, is the complete card game in a box type experience. Like, even if we're not drafting or deck constructing, these are good decks. Let's go at it. It's something I've spoken about with Netrunner, and I would like to see. I'd like to see a game that delivers on that for me. This is interesting now that Artifact has come out, which is a game that very much does the same sort of thing. But having played both of them, I think I might be leaning stronger towards ELO Darkness. That's my number 2.
Artifact from the up-and-comer Richard Garfield.
Yeah, exactly.
My number 2 game I am most excited about in 2019 can be described very simply. Trois in space. Except not really, but it's by the same designers who brought you Trois going to space. This game is Black Angel. It brings back the same 3 designers who I can't say any of their names, I'm sorry, who gave us Twa, the gem that is Twa, but now in space. This game also features artwork from up-and-coming artist Ian O'Toole. It does.
I believe you. No, I believe you.
He's
He's very up-and-coming. He's up-and-coming.
It has a beautiful cover. I know very little about it. It is a Euro game with a fun science fiction theme. And this is the sci-fi that I can get behind. It's not boring and dark. It's fun. No, it's bright and colorful and playful. It looks awesome.
Wow. It's called Black Angel. That doesn't evoke like... honestly, I haven't seen this game.
It's
I've heard
true.
of it, but yeah, it seems like a very like
it
dark,
sounds
gothy sort of title.
even more try-hard than Elo Darkness. Black Angel.
You're
It
right,
could be
right.
an expansion for Elo Darkness. So if you like the game Twa, if you like my recommendations, check out Black Angel, Twa in Space.
There you go. So for my number 2, I'm going to really grind this joke into the ground because this is by another couple up-and-comers, Vital Lacerda and Ian O'Toole. Wow. This is On Mars. This has been described as terraforming Mars on steroids. I wasn't a huge fan of terraforming Mars, but I feel like in Lacerda's hands, it'll be a much different game, and I'm sure it is. I don't know if a rule book or anything has been released yet, but from what I've seen, it is a much different game. Although you are sort of building up the planet Mars, I think you are all contributing to building the cities on Mars and building the planet up. So it's got like a semi-cooperative thing that you get in terraforming Mars. But again, Lacerda's hands, I'm very excited about it. It's also got a thing that you see in games like Le Havre where you have buildings, I think, and you can use your own buildings at no cost and use other people's buildings, but giving them a benefit. Again, just the Mars theme is starting to wear a little thin. You're getting a little, it's sort of being saturating the market. But again, Lacerda, I'm always excited for a Lacerda game. This seems like a heavy Lacerda game, which I really like. The art, this up-and-comer is really nailing with the art. So art looks great, board looks great. So yes, On Mars, my number 2 game of 2019.
My number 1 most anticipated. I just have Ian O'Toole written down here, which doesn't make any sense.
A Race for the Galaxy board game.
Exactly. No, my number 1 board game is Warpgate by Artyom Nichbarov, the designer of the Gods of Atlantis, which we've spoken at length about in the podcast previously, a minute ago, in fact. But Warpgate is his take on the 4X genre. It's not quite 4X from what I can tell. It's 4X-ish. But it does seem to sort of take that sort of as a base and streamline it and make it really, really fast. If Eclipse is sort of the full 4X, takes 4 hours experience, then Warpgate is the 60 to 90 minutes stripped down, fast, fun, frantic version of that. And that sounds awesome. The way this works is you have a hand of cards. There's a hand management component here where you have a board of 4 actions, and each turn you're going to choose a card, play it to action space number 1. You're going to pick the top or the bottom action and execute it. Action 2 for the round is the same thing, except you get double the ability. Like whatever you do is twice as effective because you're playing it in spot 2. In spot 3, it's 3 times as effective, and then in spot 4, it's 4 times as effective. So it just becomes this escalating scale each round where your turns just get more and more crazy and more. They just sort of escalate in crazy ways, which just leads like what sounds like really fast, frantic, quick playing 4X-ish type game that, like I said, will sort of close out in like 60 to 90 minutes. I've heard that the combat is really satisfying without being overbearing. I'm super excited for this. It seems to be everything I want from that sort of style of game, just boiled down to a very quick, slick, streamlined experience.
When are we playing?
It's very soon, I hope. Listeners will remember this made my Essen anticipation list. Like, I'm still waiting, sadly, but I think it's very, very soon. I think in the next month we should have our hands on this.
Cool.
I'm really excited about that, yeah.
Yeah, should be fun. I checked. Ian O'Toole's first game where he was an artist was 2011.
But he's only done Lacerda games mainly, right?
Study in Emerald 2nd edition. Okay. He actually illustrated.
Ah.
Fool's Gold, bunch of old stuff. But
Fool's Gold is not old. Fool's Gold is like 2015. I don't know. Or maybe later.
Who can say what's
Who can
old
say?
or not?
That's right.
And on this
What is
podcast,
old?
he's an up-and-comer.
That's right. That's right.
My number 1 most anticipated game of 2019 is a game I've talked about before. This is from Colossal Games. This is from a favorite designer of mine, the designer of Omen, A Reign of War, John Cloudis. This is Mezo, Mezo. In case you want to look this up, I wouldn't know if it's Mezo or Meso. This is a Mayan-themed area control dudes on a map game. One of the things I love about it is how unique the theme is. There are other games with this theme, but it's definitely less represented than Egyptian or Roman or one of these other sort of fighty conquest type places. Places is the wrong word, but it's an interesting set of gods that are in this game. What I love about John Clodus designs is how simple the rule sets are and how simple all the actions seem, combined with a very tight take that back and forth element to them. This is in Omen, A Reign of War. I've read the rule book for Mezo. I'm very excited to check this out. This has the fun production that I like. I'm a sucker for more production. This was on Kickstarter last year. It's due to be delivered this year. I have not played it. I've been asking Colossal Games, but they apparently don't want to let me play it. But I will get that this year. John Clodus has not disappointed me in any major way. This is, in a way, trying to be like Rising Sun or Blood Rage, but not from a different designer. But in many ways, I prefer John Clodus designs to designs from Homeboy, what's his name? Homeboy
Lang.
Eric Lang, my homeboy.
Yeah, I'm excited for this. I don't know how off base I'm with this, but it seems to lean closer to like a Kemet or an Inish in terms of like the rule set and this relative simplicity compared to, like you're saying, an Eric Lang game, which that sounds way up my alley. I'm excited for that.
You could convince me that this was, without the rules, just looking at the board and looking at the minis, Eric Lang's next Blood Rage game. So they were smart about how they did that, because that got me intrigued. But really the pedigree for me is always, who's the designer? What have I loved from them in the past? And I'm excited to check out Mezo by Colossal Games.
My number one game, listener Nate has made an appearance earlier on the show, and I have him to thank for this one. He put it on my radar. This is, and I love the title of this game, City of the Big Shoulders. This is a game that has been likened to Arkwright meets 18XX, which is meaty. That is heavy. So I think I will be lucky if I play this more than once this year. But yeah, just that. Arkwright is just about as heavy an economic game as you can have, mixed with 18XX, but without the trains. So it's 18XX without trains. This is instead about economic development in Chicago. So it's got like an operating and stock round like you do in 18XX games, but about, I guess, building the infrastructure of Chicago. One of the concerns I have, aside from the theme, which actually the theme is actually sort of interesting, but I guess the main concern I have is I've heard this game can be long, but I don't know how you'd have Arkwright meets 18XX and not have it long. And yet I'm super excited about it. That just seems like such a just meaty. I feel like this is a game that's just going to have decision after difficult decision. Hadn't heard anything about it. And then looked it up and was intrigued. So my number one game that I'm anticipating for 2019 is City of the Big Shoulders. And I think that's going to do it for our list of most anticipated games of 2019. As always, you can find us on any form of social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. Join the Discord channel. Chat with us whenever you want. That's boardgamebarrage.com/Discord. Reviews are great, so please review us. Let us know where you review us, and we'll be happy to read it on upcoming episodes.
And in compiling this list, I could not be contained by 5 games. So I've actually put together a geek list that will be published at the time of this episode. That'll be my top 10 games of 2019 that I am excited for, with a little write-up about what I'm excited. We'll have a link to that on the website, boardgamebarrage.com. We'll have a link to that in the Discord, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, if you want to like and share that. Obviously, that will be the true list for Board Game Barrage, the best games of 2019, top 10 most anticipated.
As always, a big thank you to Heart Society for their intro and outro music. What's on Your Mind, Kid? You can find them at heartsocietymusic.com. And so that's going to do it for the show. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So long. So this has a long and a storied history. Puerto Rico is a very famous board game. Action selection, problematic theme. What? Why are you laughing? What do you mean? What do you mean?
It's factually true.
I just didn't know, like, how's that lead to this?
It leads to it.
Okay,
Okay.
sure.
Well, you can't.
I'm
We
with you.
can't have you laughing
No,
when I
okay.
say problematic theme.
You got it.
It's like as a 12-year-old, people would call me like big boy. 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 It's like as a 12-year-old, people would call me like big boy.